Why did you decide to come here today?
I came because you said you were going to tell the truth.
I know my brother's innocent.
Rodney Reed is most certainly guilty.
I knew from the beginning my son is innocent. It's totally out of his character.
When you find out that there were other victims, you find out that he'd been doing this for a long time.
If you don't believe Rodney is totally innocent, there's enough out there to cast doubt, and that is enough for a new trial.
For more than 2 decades, Roderick Reed has fought on behalf of his brother, Rodney Reed.
I feel that the truth is out there, that they do know, the state knows that I'm innocent.
On November 20th, 2019, Reed is scheduled to die for the murder of Stacey Stites in Bastrop in April 1996.
She had a life with Jim, and now somebody's taken that away.
Engaged and weeks away from her wedding to Giddings police officer Jimmy Fennell, Stacey Stites, a 19-year-old recent graduate of Smithville High School, was working the early morning shift in the produce section of Bastrop's H-E-B to make extra money for her wedding.
She had been working and paying off her dress and doing a little bit each week to make sure that this wedding came off okay.
But on the morning of April 23, 1996, Stacey's coworker called her mother, Carol, to let her know Stacey hadn't shown up for work at 3:30 a.m. as scheduled. Police later found the truck she shared with Fennell in the parking lot near Bastrop High School, but Stacey wasn't anywhere to be seen. Then, hours later, a realtor stumbled upon Stacey's body on a quiet dirt road miles away. Stacey had been strangled. Crime scene video shows a piece of her belt, the murder weapon, a few feet away from her body in the woods. Stacey's shirt was pulled off, her pant zipper was broken. And when DPS crime scene analysts processed the scene, they found semen in Stacey's vagina. Immediately, Texas Rangers and local investigators started focusing their investigation on Fennell. That's according to the Attorney General's lead prosecutor, Lisa Tanner.
I've tried to figure out how Jimmy Fennell could have killed Stacey Stites. I can't get there.
Did we suspect him? Well, of course you always suspect them, but it never added up.
Deborah Oliver is Stacey's older sister. Oliver says Stacey was excited to marry Fennell. It was the last thing they ever spoke about.
I don't know if a lot of people know that we buried her in her wedding dress and he put the ring on her finger. It was just his parents and I there to see that. So it just never quite made sense, you know, and quite honestly, at the end of the year, I really thought it was going to be a cold case. I didn't think they were ever going to find anyone.
Months passed without a lead. Fennell failed a lie detector test, but the semen inside Stacey did not match Fennell or anyone else connected to Stacey.
They tested everyone, you know, anyone who had remotely had contact with her at any point. I mean, hundreds, they exhausted it. Everyone keeps saying this was a small town. No, it wasn't a small town investigation. This was the Texas Rangers, the Texas Attorney General. They completely took over and investigated this, and it was exhaustive.
Then, a break in the case.
November 9th, 1996, nearly 7 months after Stacey was killed, a young Austin woman named Linda Schluter was visiting friends here in Bastrop around midnight when she stopped to use a payphone at this now closed gas station. It was while she was using the phone that she says a tall black man approached her asking for a ride.
I was only 19 at the time. So I was like, where do you live? And he said, on Main Street. And in my mind, Main Street's this big lit up road. So I was like, oh, well, how far? And he said a mile or two.
Linda drove and says when he tried guiding her down a dirt road, she refused and turned the car around.
The next thing I know, he has me by the back of my hair, slamming my face on my steering wheel.
Linda says she kept trying to fight back.
And I asked him, I was like, what do you want? What the hell do you want from me? And he said, I want a blowjob. And I said, you'll have to kill me before you get anything from me. And he said, I guess I have to kill you then.
Still fighting, Linda says he tried to take her in the car, but when she saw lights approaching, she jumped out and says he took off in her car, leaving her to run for help.
They called the cops came, and I identified who it was, exactly what he was wearing, where I picked him up, what time it was.
According to prosecutors, earlier in the night, a Bastrop officer had noticed Reed near the gas station wearing the clothes Linda had described. They placed Reed in a photo lineup.
I knew immediately who it was. Immediately. I picked him out immediately. No doubt at all.
And that night is what would lead police to connect Rodney to Stacey's case. Similar MOs, prosecutors say. Linda's car left close to where Stacey's truck was found. They also think Stacey may have been stopped near the same gas station.
We believed Stacey was abducted from that place. We knew that there was a struggle inside of her truck based on the condition of her truck, based on the abrasions that were found on her body.
Suspecting they may be connected, police tested Reed's DNA against the semen found in Stacey, and it matched. After months of investigating, police believed they had found their killer.
We heard first about Rodney Reed when they called and said, "We have a suspect and we think it's him."
They questioned Reed in jail for a drug charge, and he denied knowing Stacey at all. But when police confronted him with the DNA evidence, he claimed they had had consensual sex days before, saying it was a secret since Stacey had been engaged.
All of this talk about Stacey Stites having this clandestine affair with Rodney Reed only came up after he was linked to it by DNA, which we later learned in looking at the case was precisely the argument that he made back in the previous case in Wichita Falls.
Tanner is referring to Rodney Reed's first charge for sexual assault. A young white woman told police she was raped and beaten. Officers took this photo of her injuries after the incident. Reed said it was consensual and she was hiding the relationship because he was black. A jury acquitted Reed, but he would go on to face several more charges of sexual assault, including the rape of a 12-year-old girl in Bastrop. Reed's DNA, according to the Attorney General's office, matched several unsolved rape cases. 4 cases are still pending, but Reed was already under arrest for capital murder, so those 4 rape cases were never tried, including Linda's.
Everybody says he's innocent, and they just don't know the whole story.
He definitely hurt other women. I think it's been very frustrating to have other women say, Rodney Reed raped me too, Rodney Reed attacked me, Rodney Reed beat me too, and to have these women, have the media tell these women, well, you didn't have your day in court, so your story doesn't matter.
There has been no case against Rodney.
Reed has never been convicted of rape. Many of his supporters believe he was framed.
They withheld evidence. They did everything, suppressed evidence and everything in this trial. Now, what makes you think they won't set him up, make him look to be like a rapist? They are very corrupt down here.
What we have here is we have a bunch of allegations. They're all very different. They go back over the course of a long time, and they were never really vetted.
Reed's lawyers with the Innocence Project also pushed for further DNA testing on Stacey in 2015. And in the state's advisory, it shows advanced DNA testing revealed more of Reed's DNA on Stacey in her vagina, anus, and underwear, and mixed with Stacey's DNA on her pants and on her back brace, which was found in her truck.
We've done DNA testing, and all it's done is further solidify that Rodney Reed is responsible for her murder.
Now Reed's lawyers are pushing for the murder weapon to be tested for DNA.
The state has fought for years to prevent us from testing the one item that really could determine who committed this crime, and that's the belt that was used to strangle Stacey.
The state argues the belt has been handled by multiple people over the years, and it's been cross-contaminated. Here it is lying in a pile of evidence.
Since all testing had been completed, people handled it without gloves, and that was, again, consistent with the standards of the day.
The U.S. Supreme Court also denied Reed's appeal to test the belt in 2018. Over the past several years, new witnesses have come forward claiming they knew Stacey was with Reed. Others have claimed Jimmy Fennell, Stacey's fiance, confessed to her murder.
We're really just trying to get these witnesses in front of a judge, in front of a jury, and let's sort it all out. And let's find out what really happened here before we execute the wrong guy.
But the state says these witnesses are not credible. Oliver points out Stacey's employer, HEB, offered a $50,000 reward for information when she was killed, and no one came forward.
Had that person come out that first year, when there was a reward offered, when it was publicized well within the town. It's a small town. It's not like this wasn't the talk of the town. I probably would give her more credit, but to come out 20 years later and all of a sudden you have a remembering.
In another argument for Reed's innocence, his lawyers say experts who have looked at this crime scene video have come forward saying Stacey could have been killed before midnight when she was allegedly with Fennell. The prosecution says it's not an exact science, and the chief medical examiner who determined Stacey's original time of death says Stacey was killed around 3 a.m. So now, after more than a half dozen failed appeals, Rodney Reed is facing what could be his final week. As his family, lawyers, and supporters make their final plea for a stay of execution.
All we asking people is just look at the evidence, look at the truth, just look at it.
The state and federal judges in charge of reviewing Reed's case have all come to the same conclusion.
Everyone keeps saying he hasn't had a fair trial, and he had a fair trial in 9 appeals. 9. And over and over and over again, they say he's guilty.
Is there any doubt in your mind that he's the one that killed Stacey?
No doubt at all. No doubt at all.
With photojournalist Brian Bell, Kris Betts, KVUE News.